Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on a Tuesday night. Hope everybody's having a great evening. Happy to have you in for another edition of the Prime Time Show. As we kind of get you ready for the season, as we get a little closer day by day, we're going to look at a couple of different things that allowed the Tennessee Titans in 2021 to have success and basically how they can try and carry that over, which is difficult to do year over year. We're going to dig in on this defense and talk about what the depth looks like, what one thing they need to continue to sustain from one year to the next. We'll talk about how we can get to the next level with this defense, how we can see them elevate themselves as they look to stay competitive in this jam-packed, loaded AFC situation right now. We'll wrap things up because it's a Tuesday with a gone viral video, as is the custom on the Primetime Show. Happy to have you guys in this evening and looking forward to having a great show with you together. Before we get started, though, need you guys to share this show on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. If you're hanging out on Twitter, please retweet the show. That's in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you are on YouTube or Twitch, please subscribe to the channel. You can get our live stream coverage 7 days a week, not the morning show this week because they are apparently taking vacation. Good on them. They both deserve it. Austin and could use a little time to kind of get themselves back together as we prepare for another year of the grind. Amar says, injected into my veins, Buck. Well, that's a rather aggressive approach for a Tuesday, July the 5th, when there's precious little going on. But we can do that. We got the content. We got the smack that you need to keep this thing going. I'm watching The Wire right now on HBO, as a matter of fact. So I'm running around with blue tops, except the blue tops are Tennessee Titans defensive nuggets that we have prepared for you tonight. Going to have a lot of fun. We can go ahead and get the show started. Why don't we? Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on a Tuesday. I'm your host, Buck Rising, if you're new to the show, and I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by our friends at Two Rivers Ford. Two Rivers Ford is where you go for quality American-made Ford vehicles and customer service that cannot be matched. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. Gary Ashton and the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage, GaryAshton.com, is where you go for your dream address. Without the stress, the Ashton team will put you in a position to succeed with the intel edge that only they can provide. GaryAshton.com is where you go. So, looking at a couple of different things for the Tennessee Titans, we've got to talk about, okay, what is sustainable, right? And how difficult is it to do? Looking at defense year over year, it's typically pretty hard to bring things to bear 2 years in a row, right? No season is created like the other. And of course, there will be personnel that changes year over year. You'll have some different variables to account for. But looking at defense specifically takes a larger toll on the body. Outside of offensive line and running back, right? The most physical positions are on the defensive side of the ball. Contact on every play, basically, unless you're playing in the secondary. And looking at it, the situation is different as the league has evolved. Now we're no longer seeing, smashing and crashing run, Ray Lewis-sized linebackers filling a gap and taking on a Lorenzo Neal type of fullback, right? That's not necessarily the game in its current form. A lot more wide open space. You've got, legislation changing how physical guys can be. And so what is sustainable on defense? That's what we're going to talk about tonight as we kind of peel through this thing. And as I was coming up with, all right, where do you start? With producer Reed looking at the show that he put together and kind of picking my spots as far as, well, what is the thing that they can repeat most easily after having a pretty impressive 2021 campaign. Now, maybe impressive just by nature of what you held it up against, which was, of course, the disaster that was 2020 on that side of the ball. But still, looking at what you have to work with on defense, you feel pretty good about your situation. Now, the best chance at success is going to be on the defensive side of the ball. And the best chance of success, I think, is something that can be done in layers, for lack of a better term. So we'll talk about it together in the comment section on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Let's start with your Two Rivers Ford take. Will the Titans have over or under 43 sacks in 2022? That's, of course, accounting for the regular season. We're going to talk about the importance of sacks, how important or maybe not important you may consider it to be. But your Two Rivers Ford take is where we will start. Will the Titans have over or under 43 sacks this coming season? That's the total that they had, right? You go from 19 to 43. It's a pretty substantial jump. And in kind of diagnosing pass rush, sacks are not the best measurement for an individual pass rusher, right? You're not going to look at Harold Landry and say, okay, maybe Harold Landry's a bad example because I think a lot of people do judge production based off of sack totals, but I don't necessarily look at that way. And neither do the coaches, by the way. Sacks are a great judgment of an overall pass rush, of an overall ability to disrupt the quarterback. Pressures for the individual, and I'm sure that's a line that you guys have heard me repeat over and over and over again. Pressures are what you look at and say, okay, this is the judgment of a pass rusher, of a good or a bad pass rusher. And then the sack total is how you judge the pass rush as a whole. Quarterback hits and pressures. Kevin Jones on Facebook has that right. And I'm looking at this and saying, okay, that's probably the thing that's most easy to recreate, that's easiest to kind of sustain. It's not turnovers necessarily, right? You have to put yourself in a position to capitalize on turnovers, certainly. But turnovers is not something that you can outright game plan for. You can try and put your defense in a position to capitalize on turnovers. You can coach how to force turnovers, but that's not necessarily a given on a play-in, play-out basis. Looking at the sack totals, that was something that obviously the Titans suffered with in 2020, but they were great as far as their turnover differential was concerned. In fact, it was the only reason that their defense was any kind of sustainable under Shane Bowen in that first season is because they were turning the ball over. Well, they weren't turning the ball over on offense, and their turnover differential on defense was really, really helping to carry the day. Looking at, I think MB has a good point here as well. I look at sacks on third and long. This judges a team's ability to get off the field. Yeah, third situational football and SIS stats and information is an incredible resource that you can kind of put, you can basically input all the different variables for situational football, and it'll spit out the computations for you in ways that are easy to process, or at least easy for most people to process. You obviously have to take into consideration all the different variables that could be accounted for or may not be accounted for. But still, the defense's ability to get off the field on third down was substantially better because of their ability to get to the quarterback. Not necessarily relying on turnover luck, right? Turnover luck is kind of like puck luck in hockey. Maybe you get a favorable bounce. Maybe a tip drill goes your way. Maybe because a football is a weird shape, there's just a fantastic bounce, and all of a sudden it's in Jeff Simmons' belly as opposed to in Jonathan Taylor's hands, right? These are the kind of things that turnovers that make turnovers difficult to carry over year. But the ability to disrupt the quarterback, I think, is what the Titans do best. So over or under 43 sacks, that's the Two Rivers Ford take that I'm looking for you. In the meantime, we'll talk to Mike Vrabel about the last time we talked to Mike Vrabel about sacks.
How surprising you get 9 sacks and that not be good enough to win a game?
Because you guys, last year, you talked about all the sacks we didn't have. And you guys somehow think that sacks lead to victories. They're great. We'll talk about how many we had this year, but I like turnovers and interceptions and caused fumbles. So maybe we had too many sacks this year.
There is nothing I enjoy. Now, Mike is clearly miserable there. That's after the Cincinnati Bengals loss. There is few things in life or in my job rather that I enjoy more than a shitty Mike Vrabel press conference. Like he is unbelievable. He is at his best at the podium when he's basically just up there ready to fight everybody, right? You guys talked about all the different sacks that we didn't have last year. Maybe we had too many sacks this year. And listen, I think a lot of you guys like that, months removed from that loss. But I can tell you that the very same people who are saying, gotta love Mike and Salty Vrabel is the best Vrabel and all these different comments that I see, you guys did not appreciate those comments after that game was lost the way that it was lost. I remember that very clearly because a lot of the same names that I see saying, God, I love it when Mike Vrabel sticks it to the media. You were not happy with Mike's response that Saturday evening after they choked it away against Cincinnati. Because somebody said, let me see if I can find the comment about the question for Vrabel. That's the worst question to ask Vrabel after that loss. Well, but Eric, here's the thing, okay? Because I will admit, I've been in a lot of these press conferences. I'm in every post-game press conference. I don't go to practice every day anymore the way that I used to. So I'm not at every press conference every day, but I'm at every game, every one of consequence, right? I'm good with not catching every Friday during the regular season when, Mike's fed up with our shit and we've run out of questions to ask. And then it's just basically like 6 minutes of, hey, Mike, who are you scratching on Sunday? And he just looks at Glennon like I'm going to throat punch you if you ask me that question for 17th week in a row. And it always happens that way. But we often, there's plenty of times when we ask bad questions. I think that's probably my biggest self-criticism of what it is that we do, including myself. I've asked plenty of bad questions in my lifetime. But that's the worst question to ask Vrabel after that loss? Not really. Like, what the hell else are you going to ask him? Mike, you got 9 sacks and you lost a playoff game. Like, what the hell are you supposed to do with that? Unless you ask it that way, the response is not going to be any better, right? It's not like he's going to respond better to that. Hey, Mike, what the, I can't drop an F-bomb the way that I want to, but Mike, what the, what Jeff Simmons is chewing on Joe Burrow's spine and you can't win the game. What happened? Like, I'm not going to ask it that way. Right. So, I mean, when you say that's the worst question to ask Vrabel, well, how the hell else is Beauclair supposed to ask that question? I think it's pretty, and listen, it's not just Eric. Like, there's plenty of people who, I think, armchair quarterback media, even. You armchair quarterback your football team, you armchair quarterback your coaching, and you can armchair quarterback media. It's entirely your right. But I think it's a lot easier to say that's the worst question to ask Vrabel after that loss 6 months removed in a YouTube chat, as opposed to, you coming up with your own question for Mike Vrabel after he's just gotten his ass kicked when they had the best chance possible, probably in the last 20 years, to go to the Super Bowl with the team that they currently had to host home playoff games, and they shit the bed, right? It's not necessarily the easiest dynamic to balance. But again, because I love shitty Vrabel so much, I would like to watch this clip again.
Not surprising you get 9 sacks and that not be good enough to win a game.
Because you guys, last year you talked about all the sacks we didn't have, and you guys somehow think that sacks lead to victories. They're great. We'll talk about how many we had this year, but I like turnovers and interceptions and caused fumbles. So maybe we had too many sacks this year.
Like I said, I've covered every game that Mike Vrabel has ever coached, and it still makes me laugh every time. Mike is, he's got a future in media or stand-up comedy, whatever he wants to do in his post-coaching career, if such things exist. But right now, he's just up there. Trying to get after people. So over or under, it's an interesting kind of way to look at it. I think that they're probably, I mean, what's the record? Reed, could you look up what the record is for regular season sacks by a team? I bet it's somewhere in the 60s, right? Probably low 60s. And now that we have an additional regular season game, that number is easier to attain, I think. well, it would be easier to attain because you've got an extra game to try and accomplish it. But I think, the sack record is going to be somewhere in the 60s. I would imagine producer is going to come up with the answer to that and put it in the comment section here in just a second. But I think ultimately for me, I'd probably you would be safer betting the under, I would say, just because it's something. 84 Bears had 72. How many games, Reed? Do you have that off the top of your do you have that? I know I'm making you work. He's just gave me the finger. I won't tell you which one, but I can see him working in the shadows there, held up a finger to the screen. I will not tell you which finger he just held up, but we will see. So in 16 games for the 84 Bears, thank you, Reed. Bravo. 72 sacks in 16 regular season games. So looking at that, I think that, for them to have a better season that they did as far as a pass rush is concerned, I think that a lot of that depends simply on the quarterbacks that they play. Now, I think it's reasonable to expect that they would be better. MB says that was the 85 Bears. They won in January of 85. Okay, well, no, that can't be the 80. Would they wouldn't call the 85 Bears the 85 Bears from the 84 regular season, right? That can't be so. I don't necessarily know that is accurate. Anyway, I don't want to get bogged down with that. I think the safer bet is under, but I bet they probably go over, honestly. I think that Bud Dupree is going to be a big difference. A healthy Bud Dupree is going to make a big difference for this pass rush. I think that as you look at the situation for the Titans, you had the three of them, Harold, Jeff, and Denico Autry, healthy for the vast majority of the season, right? Jeff, obviously, I think was working through some stuff towards the end. Denico, I believe, missed at least one start that comes to mind. I would have to go back and check Pro Football Reference on that. But I would say that Bud Dupree, who was a much less consistent presence for that defense, is going to make a big difference as a part of that. Now, I don't necessarily know that it jumps from 43 to 53 all of a sudden, but I do think that they will be a considerably better unit, and they were already a really good one, right? Plus, you consider the additions of Rashad Weaver. We'll see what somebody like Ola Adeni can continue to bring to the table. I think that Naquan Jones and Tier Tart are really, really nice depth pieces. Well, Tier Tart is technically the starting nose tackle, but still, you're looking at this and saying, yeah, I think a lot of this bodes well for a unit to be able to sustain year over year. Mad Max on YouTube, Mad Max 931 says, Autry played way better than I expected, and Adeni the same. Well, Denico Autry is as good as any free agent. They had he was the best free agent acquisition that the Titans had. He is the best roster addition, whether you're talking rookie, whether you're talking free agent. Like, Denico Autry was considerably the most important personnel change that they made, and especially by nature of him coming over from Indianapolis. So you took from the Colts and made yourself better, and the Colts certainly missed his presence last year, playing alongside DeForest Buckner and kind of using him in a variety of different ways. Now, whether Denico Autry can kind of exceed that level, because I think Denico Autry is a really, really, really good role player. But obviously he's not, the kind of premier defender that you would necessarily look for that kind of production from. But I don't think he necessarily has to be the most overwhelmingly talented player in football to be able to execute that role again. And provided he play healthy, I think he's a huge asset for this team. So we'll see. I would venture a guess to say over, though, which, you guys know I'm not typically, I'm not unnecessarily optimistic about anything when it comes to your football team. But I think in even by any conservative estimate, you would say, yeah, they're probably going to get, I don't know how much better, but they're probably going to be a better group collectively than what we saw on the field last year. And what we saw on the field last year was still pretty damn good. All right, let's talk about the turnovers to get into that conversation. Well, interceptions specifically is how we have kind of broken this down. But I'd be curious to know your opinion on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. The Titans defense will have over or under 16 interceptions in 2022. That number is what they finished with the past year, and I think that's the place that we need to start. The Titans defense will have over or under 16 interceptions in this coming season. We will talk about it together, and you can give me your opinion. And as you do so, I will tell you about our friends at the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. The official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators is GaryAshton.com. He's the official realtor of me, too. I used Gary Ashton and the Ashton team to make sure that I found the perfect home for myself. I could not be happier with the results of the home that I purchased 3 years ago last month. Gary and his team put me in the best possible position to succeed with the intel edge that only they have. GaryAshton.com, the official real estate agent of your favorite pro sports teams and your favorite late night streaming sports talk show. All right. So, over under 16 interceptions. It's a push. 16 interceptions again for MB. Now, I think that when it comes to the turnover total, right? We're obviously not accounting for fumble recoveries here. Interceptions are the thing that I think kind of puts things in the best possible perspective for people. Affecting the quarterback can often lead to errant throws, inaccurate passes. You get a hand on the ball, you get hands up in the quarterback's face, and you can swat it down at the line of scrimmage or kind of tip it up from there. We've seen Jeff Simmons and Jayon Brown capitalize on plays like that plenty of times in the past couple of years. Obviously a big rebound year from Kevin Byard, who was not having to do everybody's job and was making himself worse at his own job, getting himself out of position to have to cover up for mistakes of other people. In 2020, you saw a nice rebound from Byard there. And Kevin and I talked about that on the radio show about 2 months ago. I think they were still in the middle of mandatory minicamp at the time, a little less than 2 months ago at this point. But looking at this, I would say a push is fair. 16 interceptions is a good number. Now, I would like to see them, and this is a coaching point. I talked to Ryan Crow, their outside linebackers coach, about this at mandatory minicamp the last time we spoke to assistants. And he said basically, yeah, what we did last year was unacceptable as far as, getting as you're peeling around the corner or as you're getting around the edge as an edge player, get the hand up in the air and swat the football before it comes out, right? They were getting there and they were getting the quarterback at a more frequent rate, but they weren't disrupting the ball before it came out of the quarterback's hands. It will be markedly easier on you if you can get the hand up in the air, bring the hand down on the quarterback's arm as he goes back to pass, and you get the football as it's coming out, right? Whether there's forward progress and it becomes a pass, whether there's not forward progress and it becomes a fumble. That is something you want to see the Titans defense do more. Quarterback goes back to pass. You see him rear back. All of a sudden, there's Denico Autry's arm swatting it down at the line of scrimmage or pulling the arm down to make a play on the ball. That's the kind of thing that the Titans defensive coaching staff is emphasizing, and we've seen them work a lot of those drills. For Mike Vrabel, certainly, when it comes to it, he's always focused on the rush complementing the coverage consistency, front multiplicity, right? He's gotten away from a lot more of those, I don't want to say generic because I think a lot of coaches, there is practical purposes to that terminology. But, when it comes to what they're able to do, I think Mike is aware of that situation. I think he and the coaching staff are emphasizing that in particular to the players this year.
Well, I don't think Ryan or myself or anybody did enough to win the game. That's how it goes, Paul. It's never going to be about one person, not as long as I'm the head coach, which will be a while. So it'll never be about one person. We have to play better, we have to get open, not fall down. Defense got to get some turnovers, but we can't turn the ball over. We know that. We can't get stopped on down. So those are all the things that we talk about and reasons why you lose. Our third down conversion wasn't good enough. Our ability to score touchdowns in the red zone, but we all have to play better. We have to coach better.
It'll never be about blaming one person, not as long as I'm the head coach, which will be a while. It's such a great line in real time. It is unholy arrogant. But, I think that's why a lot of people, I think certainly the players feed off that kind of energy from Mike. And, I remember sitting in that press conference trying to stifle I think I snorted because I tried to catch myself from laughing because I think he would have bit my head off if I laughed in that press conference. Says, not as long as I'm the head coach, which will be a while. And the stare down afterwards, it's just great. It makes me happy every time. Play better, coach better, says Jeff Sawyer. Yeah, we had done like a play better, coach better counter this year. He'd gotten away from the play better, coach better. And then all of a sudden, in the last game of the year, after his season's come to a screeching halt, now we got to play better, coach better. There it is. Drink. Ryan Fields says, can you dispute that, though? A record number of players we used and he got coach of the year. Can I dispute what? Ryan, what are you asking me? I can dispute whatever you're asking me that I can or cannot dispute. I think I could easily dispute just about anything, even as ridiculous as it might seem. But I need you to be more specific as to what are you asking me to dispute? A record number of players we used and he got coach of the year. So his arrogance of being there for a while. Oh, can I dispute Mike's arrogance? No, Mike's arrogance is indisputable. In fact, that may be the only thing that I cannot dispute. Mike's, but yeah, I mean, it's earned. I think mostly. I think everybody would regard Mike Vrabel as above average at his job. And I think I think it's important for him to have that kind of energy. Because I think the players do feed off that kind of stuff. Now, I mean, this was before he got the contract extension, which I'm sure he knew he was going to get a contract extension, no matter how that press conference played out specifically. But I think that when you look at Mike and what it is that he's done over time, yeah, he's winning at a better clip than almost any coach. He's winning at as good a clip as any coach in the history of that franchise, Oilers or Titans. He's got a better winning percentage than obviously a much smaller sample size of games, but he's got a better winning percentage than Jeff Fisher. He is as good as Jack Pardee, who was one of the first coaches in the history of the franchise who got off to a really, really good start when they were playing in the 1960s. So looking at this from Vrabel's standpoint, yeah, no, I don't have any problem with Mike being a cocky mother bleeper. I just think that I think in the moment, I don't think you guys received that nearly as well as you are, like I said, 6 months after the fact. Anthony Chan says, I want to see Buck become a Titans fan. My prediction for the season. Eric says Buck isn't a Titans fan. No, man. Reed, get on the camera and do the thing. I don't want to it's 3 years of me doing this thing. I don't want to have to do the thing anymore. It's like it should come with a warning label with this show, like a pack of cigarettes as far as what's going to happen to you if you smoke too many cigarettes. Reed, do the disclaimer on the show so I don't have to do it for the 7,000th time.
The biggest disclaimer is that Buck covers your team. He is not a fan. Everybody needs to understand and learn this. This needs to be like the 11th commandment. Buck shall not be a fan of the Tennessee Titans. He shall only cover them.
Excellent. Back to the shadows, producer Reed. Thank you for all of your great work. Royal Wright says Buck's a Colts fan. He will say that he isn't. You guys, it is impossible to me that you guys refuse to believe that I did not give a single shit about the sport of football until it became my job to do so. I swear to you, I do not care. There is not a single NFL program that moves me one way or the other emotionally, unless that godforsaken local football team that practices about 2 miles from my home as I sit here in downtown Nashville, unless they make it so my season stinks covering them. That's the only emotion that you will get out of me about the Tennessee Titans. Just unbelievable. I could give a damn about any of the 32 NFL franchises. I am somebody who does this for a living, and it's a great job. Game days are as fun for me, I think, as they are for the players. Even though I have zero impact on wins or losses, I love covering games. But outside of that, man, I got nothing for football other than this is what I do. This is what I know. This is what I'm paid very well by A to Z Sports and Cumulus Media to talk about on a regular basis. And outside of that, you can talk to me about fandom when it gets to college basketball season and I start mother bleeping the name of the Indiana Hoosiers, the only team that makes me feel any ounce of fandom still in my life, which I hate them for. Anyway, he also doesn't make predictions and he hates bad grammar, dogs, and fireworks. These are all things. These are all so. This is absolutely a thing. I don't like bad grammar. I don't hate dogs. I find them to be hugely annoying and I don't want anything to do with them. And also I think they're kind of idiots, but I felt terrible. I felt terrible for the dogs. Felt terrible for the dogs yesterday in particular, because I know how much the fireworks, which I do hate. I do hate fireworks. I know how much fireworks bother animals, which is not exactly what I want. But Bryson says, I actually like that I am not a Titans fan. We don't get biased opinions from him because of it. Yeah, like I said, I try to keep it balanced. Like, every once in a while, if you guys ask me what I think about a certain thing, I'll try to give that to you straight up and in as palatable way as I can. Again, I don't root for your team. I don't actively talk shit about your team unless it is shit that they have deserved because of the way that they performed. That is a part of my job qualification. Absolutely. Jake Westerman says, I love dogs. I think kids are idiots. I think if I had to pick between dogs and children, I would probably pick dogs just because I would agree with you. At least dogs, that whatever dogs are, I believe them to be unbelievably loyal, even if they throw up and then eat their own throw up, which is one of the things that makes them idiots. Children, I think, just throw up and defecate everywhere and cost you tremendous amounts of money. And it's like over a 20, if your kid's doing really well, maybe it only lasts 21 years or 22 years, however long it takes kids to get out of college. I think more than anything. So yeah, I'm going with the dogs over the children. I do not have children. In fact, I had a doctor's appointment today and they were talking about, this a certain treatment that they didn't necessarily want me to do because it might affect my fertility. And all I was thinking was, I will go down the street right now and I will get, is a vasectomy where they snip you? I will go down at 29 years or 29 in 2 weeks, not yet 29, but I'm starting to tell myself that I'm 29 so I can get over it when it actually happens to me. At 28 years old, I'm completely fine with being sterile. Just go ahead and snip it. Be done with it now. I don't want to, I'm not looking for that particular burden in my life. I would go for a dog over a child. Absolutely. But if you have both, good on you. Some of us are made for it. Some of us, like myself, we're not necessarily cut out for it. MB says, Buck also loves when Vrabel snaps at him or other media members. I do. I really do like it when Mike takes somebody's head off, even if it's mine, even if I got to be the sacrificial lamb that day, because I can get so many miles out of it in some form or fashion on a talk radio show, on the primetime show, on the podcast, whatever the case may be. Stephen King says, give us a cat update. So it seems that we're going to go that direction instead of a gone viral video tonight. Frank, both of them are in the office with me right now. Frankie and Leo. Frankie is the girl and Leo is the boy. Frankie is laying down about like I would have to reach down and pick her up, and she'd probably get pissed at me for picking her up because she looks pretty comfortable and is waiting for to be fed, because they get fed after the primetime show. Every time Reed plays a video, as a matter of fact, and she hears me stop talking, she'll come in here and chirp at me like, where the hell is my food, you idiot? Speaking of idiots, get up and give me my food. That's the difference between cats and dogs. The dog would be like, hey, man, I love you. Can we have food now? And the cat comes in here and says, hey, you idiot, it's time for dinner. Get up off your ass and stop talking about Mike Vrabel and the Titans defense. Mike Conley says, can they play wide receiver? No, Frank's a little fat. I'll be honest with you. Frank's a little fat. I don't necessarily. Frank might make a good left guard. She's I think she's like 10 pounds. It's pretty big for a cat. There's a damn mountain lion out here. Ryan Fields, boy, our discussion tonight reached all of the borders. That's right. Ryan Fields says, Buck's been hanging around Paul K too much. LOL. Starting to show. No, here's the thing, Ryan, because that's a criticism that I've gotten before. And again, I love Paul. Paul's one of my best friends as far as work friends go. I appreciate everything that Paul Kaharski has done for me over the course of his career. But Paul didn't invent being an asshole. Paul just happens to be an asshole. And it just so happens that a part of my personality also fits that description, which, it's fine. I'm not blazing any trails. Paul's not blazing any trails. There have been jerks before Kaharski. There'll be jerks after Kaharski. So not every jerk has to be attributed to Paul. I'm just kind of like this. What are you going to do? All right. What do you think, Reed? That's going to do it for tonight's show? No, he wants to do a gone viral video. All right, let's do a gone viral video and wrap this thing up on a Tuesday evening. What's the worst prank someone has pulled on you? Let me know in the comments on Facebook, YouTube, on Twitter, and on Twitch. Reed provided this to me. I saw it this morning. It made me laugh out loud. It's this week's gone viral video.
Two hours later.
It's not there, so I have to file a claim. I don't know, so I'm waiting on Amazon to call me back.
It's outstanding. It made me laugh. I would question a lot of things, like who actually are there grown adults who sleep on a blow-up mat? Now, listen, I don't understand everybody's financial situation, so let me not be a jerk. Let me not be 1%er on this, but I think it is questionable as soon as you have a situation where you're looking around and saying, yeah, that blow-up mattress that I typically sleep on, that makes sense. Let me just pop down on this. Maybe I hope it was her bedroom, not his. MB says, yes, that is among one of the better pranks that I've seen. Now, the best prank that's been pulled on me, I would have to think about that for a second. As far as pranks that have been pulled on me are concerned, I don't necessarily know that I've had like a memorable prank that's happened to me, at least not one that comes to mind, not certainly in a long time if it's happened. I think I had an ex-girlfriend pull a fake pregnancy thing on me on April Fool's Day. Maybe that was a friend of mine. I can't remember exactly how that went. So I don't recall any like really, really good pranks off the top of my head. But I think that's fortunate. Now watch, somebody's going to get me with some kind of unholy prank. Producer Reed is scheming in the background. I can already see it. It makes me very nervous. But regardless, in the meantime, that's going to do it for us tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. We had a great time. I hope you guys did as well. We covered a lot of ground here. We'll wrap the show up this way. I'll pull Frank up. I'll reach down here. She's going to be pissed at me about it. She doesn't like being picked up. This is Frank. This is my Mufasa. She's not about it. She wants nothing to do with it. It's time for dinner for Frank. And that means that the primetime show is over. Radio show tomorrow. We're going to be talking a lot about the Pac-12, the Big 12, all these different things that are falling apart in college football. It's going to be a great time. We hope to have you there from 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone. Check out the podcast if you don't already. And we're doing another episode of The Install with Greg Cosell tomorrow as well. See you guys.